Welcome back to WELSTech, the show about technology and ministry and where those two intersect. My name is Martin Spriggs, and this is episode 366 of WELSTech for Tuesday, November 4th, 2014. And joining me, as almost usual, Sallie Draper from beautiful New Ulm, Minnesota. Hi, Sallie. How are you?
I'm good. I think I've been more usual than you lately.
You have, yes.
All right, and we got something in common. November 4th. Today is the day to vote.
See my little,
we both made it to the polls. So.
Except my vote, my sticker says my vote counted.
Mine says I voted. I don't think mine counted, maybe. I don't know.
They run things a little oddly over there in Minnesota. Ever since that Ric Flair thing, I'm not sure that, or was it Jesse Ventura? I forget.
Jesse Ventura
That's
we
it was,
had,
right.
yes. So we still vote faithfully regardless.
Okay, even if you vote for pro wrestlers for your governor.
You never know.
No, any wrestlers on the ballot this year?
I don't believe so, Martin. We'll have to snap those people into...
Okay. All right, we have a special guest joining us. Who probably thinks we're very screwy, but he's seen us before in action. That's Carl Nolte from Northwestern Publishing House. Carl, welcome.
Thank you for having me again. I did vote this morning, and I did not put my sticker on, but I did vote.
We'll believe you.
Wisconsin has a very exciting race for governor right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it's going to be all over by tomorrow.
Yeah. Carl is the editor of Sacred Music and Worship at Northwestern Publishing House, and well, Carl, we had you on almost a year ago, probably a little bit less, talking about HymnSoft, and that's what we wanted to talk about again, because this little contest that we've been running here on WELSTech has a giveaway graciously provided by Northwestern Publishing House, and that's the HymnSoft software, the Player 3.0. Do I have that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're going to give that away here at the end of the interview. And we thought, well, let's have Carl back on, talk a little bit about the progress of HymnSoft and just remind everybody what it is and why it might be a good addition to their organization. So maybe let's just start with a very high-level question about HymnSoft, Carl, and that's what is it and who is it primarily for?
The original HymnSoft was kind of a reference tool. What we have now released in the new HymnSoft is something that many congregations have been using for actually worship services. We call it the HymnSoft Player because it actually does that. It plays all the music of the hymnal Christian worship, and of course we also added the supplement music to it too. So you really have two different worship resources that can play all the hymns, the liturgies, and the psalms.
And it works with MIDI technology, so it'll plug into a musical instrument and we'll play that. Is that correct?
Correct. You can play it through the sound card of your computer out to perhaps a sound system or speakers, but it also works well by sending it to we call it an external device, which basically simply is some type of keyboard and organ. One little thing that's a little bit of wrinkle in this whole thing is that there are a number of different types of electronic organs out there and keyboards, and if you can picture a typical organ has like maybe two manuals and a pedal. They're often called swell, grate, and pedal. Well, those three parts of the organ use three different channels to receive the signal. However, all the manufacturers have their own configuration. So the HymnSoft that we released last year in October of 2013 doesn't really account for all those different channel configurations. But what we have done, we're providing replacement MIDI files. So if somebody wants to use it with a specific organ, then they can call us up and we'll send them the files that will work for that specific organ. And that's been a nice workaround instead of trying to reprogram everything and put a lot of complicated things in the program which may not fit every situation.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's awesome. And as I recall, when we talked with you, and I believe we had Mike Schultz on, the WELS Hymnal Director, to talk about it last time, you had kind of upgraded the samples, that you could play through a computer or through kind of a sound system, so you had that rich, fuller sound if that's what you were after too. So you've got all those available on the disc as well.
Actually, that's a separate product we call
it is.
Yes, the M4A sound recordings.
Okay.
Sounds kind of imposing, but most people are probably acquainted with what an MP3 is. And an M4A is just a little bit better quality. And what we have done is taken all the music and all the books, both the supplement and the hymnal, and we have created what we call virtual recordings. And those are using high-quality sampled sounds from real instruments. We play the MIDI files into them, and this is what Mike Schultz did a lot of. And then we have these recordings that can be played by themselves, or they work very nicely also in the HymnSoft player. So especially if you're setting up a computer to play through a sound system, it will have a higher quality sound than just what the computer would have by itself.
So really, whatever your needs, you've kind of anticipated those. That's awesome.
That's our hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carl, my sweet spot is kind of in the training and support area, and I'm always doing that for different pieces of software. I bet you guys are doing a lot of that as new people come on board with HymnSoft. Do you have specific training people can do, or how do you help them get up and running?
What has happened is that we had decided that since this is kind of my project at Northwestern Publishing House, I would be the first line of support, mostly because I help work with creating the project and put it all together. So I've been answering many questions, first of all, about what the product can do, how is it different from the old one, and then also if there's some glitches that happen, and we've had a few. In fact, what that's leading us to do is that we're planning to release a new update in early next year of 2015 that will fix a few minor problems that have cropped up with the HymnSoft and have a couple added features. But back to the original question about support. I'm the #1 support person, and it's amazing how many things I've been able to work on over the phone. And what happens if we get to the point where I can't answer the question because it becomes too technical, then the original programmer is more than willing to work with me or even with the customer directly to make sure everything's working.
So this new release that you were mentioning, you got some bug fixes. Any new features that you're bringing into the software, and does it come along with the original purchase, or is this a separate purchase they have to make?
This will not be an additional purchase. We're planning right now this would be a free upgrade to anybody that has purchased it. We're not quite sure how we're going to deliver it. It probably will be over the website to those people who have ordered it, and we're going to work out those details. One of the things that we did not have in the original script function is that you could play things continuously. And since this is kind of a multimedia type of thing, you could literally bring in organ music from CDs, you could have choir pieces, you could have other MIDI files that would be usable for pre-service music that you would like to have play continuously. So we're going to have a continuous play function. One of the other things that people have asked for is to have something that would be a way to search for the words or phrases of a hymn. So we're going to add that now to the HymnSoft player. It gets a little bit complicated, but the original HymnSoft had 3 different modules, and really the professional module had the search function. But now we're going to add that to the player too, because a lot of people said this would be very helpful for them to use the program more effectively.
Sounds like a great business model you have going there. You're listening to the people and responding. That's fantastic. I'm sure they'll be excited to get the free upgrade.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
What is the pricing structure, the product line and pricing structure for somebody who maybe doesn't have it now and maybe is interested in exploring that?
Our online catalog has all the details. What we do have is the 2 different products, the player itself and then also the M4As, which are each about $249. And then there's a number of combinations. For example, if you buy the 2 together, you can get a reduced price. You can also get what's called a site license for both products, and that allows you to install the product on more than 1 computer, up to 10 computers at a site, so that you're not buying multiple products, and that's been very successful, especially with school situations where they might have a number of classrooms that would want to make use of it.
Makes a lot of sense, absolutely. Anything else you'd like to share about the product before we dive into our virtual fishbowl and pull out a winner?
Just that we encourage people to check it out. One of the things we've had to stop doing is supporting the old HymnSoft because, as you probably know, Microsoft has stopped supporting XP. And that has really the limit to which the old HymnSoft is working. So if anybody is upgrading to a new computer, we'd encourage them to consider the new HymnSoft because it will be much more satisfactory as far as accomplishing what they would like to do. And again, I'm the primary support person, and I'm more than happy to take questions. You can call into NPH, go online, and find my support address. And it's actually just HymnSoft support and at NPH, and we'll be able to help you as much as we can.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Carl. Sallie, are we ready to announce a winner?
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, we've said it all along, thanks very much to NPH for the donation of this copy of HymnSoft Player 3.0.
And we've appreciated very much that you've been able to, with your podcast and so forth, to get the information out so that people can have one more way to hear about it.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
And of all of those that responded to our Pastor Tech survey, that was back in September when we gathered these responses. We put those names in, and we do have a winner. And
how many total were there, first of all? How many what were their chances of winning?
Did you tell me you were going to quiz me on this one?
I
do believe there were 28 total.
I try to keep things fresh and new.
Responses. Yeah, I voted.
28.
I'm good.
Okay.
28. And the winner of HymnSoft Player 3.0 is Pastor Emil Burgess.
All right.
Emil serves right there, I think maybe in the Racine area.
Southern Wisconsin, I believe, yeah.
So congratulations, Emil. We will get that off to you very soon. Or maybe you can swing by the museum and pick it up. So, yeah.
Very
happy
good.
to share with them.
Again, thanks to you, Carl, for your willingness to come on the show, talk a little bit about HymnSoft, and please pass along our thanks to good folks at Northwestern Publishing House for continuing to support us and in this way and other ways. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you very much, and we'll be sure to do that.
Okay.
Good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Sallie. On with the show, as they say. So happy that Emil was a winner there, and hopefully you can put that to good use or find somebody who can. So very nice. Well, we talked about the survey, and the last time that we met on this topic 4 weeks ago, we went through part 1 of the Pastor's Office Tech survey. Now we're on to part 2, and it's 3 parts to this part 2. We're going to talk about mobile apps. We will talk about gadgets, favorite gadgets, and then kind of miscellaneous, or what we called anything else. And we've got some good stuff in all of those categories. Sallie, you want to lead us off with what some of the responses were for mobile apps?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that, Martin. And, you know, there were some of our favorites, some that we've talked about on the show before, and then there were some new ones as well. So it was neat to uncover some new gems in terms of mobile apps. I was excited about that. Probably the most responses in any one category of apps were related to Bibles and Bible study resources and mobile apps to do that. So a lot of people said they use the Logos app, which, you know, syncs with your Logos account and allows you to have that mobile access to your Logos library and things. I think that's a super powerful tool for many of our pastors. YouVersion was mentioned, Bible Gateway, Olive Tree's Bible Study app, all of those we have talked about on the show in the past. Great Bible resources, multiple versions of the Bible available, and if you're just, you know, getting into that, you might want to try them all out and see which one works best with your eyes and your needs as you work through the Bible. I've really enjoyed lately using the YouVersion Bible in Bible class, and I can add my notes from Bible class and things like that. So
very easy to share things too. They've made it kind of more of a social experience. I think probably all of them have done that, but YouVersion really seems to gravitate toward that. And in my convalescence here, I've really been enjoying that app because I can do a number of different Bible reading plans. And I've been using the Time of Grace ones that are out there, and just a great experience to try and you get reminded on the phone with a online notification or on your phone notification, and it just lets you know, hey, don't forget about your Bible reading for the day. So it just kind of makes it easy to stay on top of that Bible reading habit.
And I have to do a shout out to our friend missionary Mike Hartman, who serves in Mexico, because I think this is the first time we've ever talked about a Spanish language Bible-related app. This is actually an Android app, and it's basically selected Luther Works in Spanish. And so if you're Spanish speaking or reaching out to those in the Spanish community, perhaps you want to add this app to your mobile device, and we'll have a link in the show notes. I'm not going to pretend that I can pronounce that. Maybe you can, Martin.
Martin, that much I got.
Yeah. So it's our friend Martin Luther.
Martin Lutero, hang on here. Martin Lutero, Obras Destacadas.
Thank you. Excellent.
I probably butchered that, but Mike will tell us.
Yeah. So thanks for that. That was something new that wasn't on our radar before. Other categories of things were more related to managing the work of being a pastor. So there were resources around file sharing. Google was a very popular response in terms of mobile apps. So using Google Calendar, Google Drive, Gmail, all those different things in combination was high on a lot of people's lists. But there were people that mentioned using Office 365, Windows 365 on the iPad, that kind of thing. People mentioned TeamViewer for remote access to files and things that you might need to do. If you leave that running, perhaps on a server that you have access to in your church net or school network, then you would be able to mobile access through a mobile device. So lots of those kind of things around Office productivity. Also personal productivity, mileage trackers, that kind of thing. So Evernote made the list. Expensify and Fantastical, I hadn't heard of either of those, but obviously they're for expense sheets and tracking expenses, and another tool for calendaring if you want a different calendar interface. There were several mileage trackers. TripCubby, which I think I found out has a different name now, Mileage Plus, I think it's called, and it's like a $10 app, so it must be pretty good if people are willing to pay the money and, you know, also recommend it. So somebody mentioned that they use TripIt for all their travel planning.
That's what I use, yeah. Monitoring
of all of that. There were several people that made mention of reading and listening tools, so using the podcast app to listen to things like the WELSTech podcast. Yeah. Thanks, Pastor Gunther, for that shout-out. Somebody mentioned using Pocket. I think we've talked about that on the podcast before.
Offline reader, yep.
Right, so you can save some things for when you aren't connected to the internet. And also Audible and Kindle apps made the list as well. From the education perspective, there was Duolingo, which is a way to learn language, and Quizlet, which is a way to do flashcards. And I could see both of those being really useful for personal education. You know, you're stuck somewhere and you can run through your language training or whatever it may be, but also for teaching. I know pastors have responded before that they use Quizlet to set up flashcards for use in catechism class and that kind of thing. So kind of multi-functions there. Note-taking apps were mentioned, like Evernote and Penultimate. And then there was kind of the rest, and that category I put Facebook. Somebody actually mentioned Facebook, and you know, that's a valid pastoral app. You got to connect with the people where they're at, and so I thought that was good that it made the list. Boy, I could probably talk all day on mobile apps. There were a lot of great ones mentioned. We'll make sure and have links in the show notes to some of those newer ones that we haven't touched on before on the podcast. That's a pretty good rundown.
It is. I was just curious, how many survey results mentioned Pinterest? I didn't hear that mentioned. I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
You silenced me. I'm over it. Yeah. Pastors are so behind the curve. That's the moral.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Yeah. That's the moral. They need to be there, but they are missing.
They'll get there eventually.
Yeah, they're just slow to adopt.
Not on the bleeding edge.
No.
Okay.
Get with it, guys.
All right. Let's move on to favorite gadgets, which is kind of a free-for-all. Had to do specifically with things that you hold in your hand and you can unbox and plug in and, you know, get to use, and a lot of the usual suspects here. You know, not a lot of surprises. You mentioned a couple of these even. Kindle was mentioned a couple of times. Obviously, probably the best e-reader out there. I have a Kindle Fire myself, and I use it at night to do my reading. When I read kind of our books that we're doing reviews on. That's what I use, just a good reading experience. And they've kind of added a lot of different things to it. Of course, a lot of the mobile phone platforms were mentioned. iPhone was mentioned, Samsung phones, Android phones. The Nexus 5 was mentioned. The iPad was mentioned. All of those are fairly mainstream. So it's
any clear winner among those? Was it pretty evenly distributed?
I would say very evenly distributed. My guess is that our audience and those that responded to the survey are fairly techy already. So that's probably why we had an even mix of Android and iOS devices mentioned. But there were some that were, kind of, off of that too, with like Nexus 5 and Samsung, those kinds of things too. So it was kind of an interesting mix.
No Windows Phone users, huh?
No Windows Phone users. Although the next category was Surface. The Surface tablet was mentioned twice. The Surface 2 and the Surface 3. Let me just bring up a quick screen share, and we can talk through that just a second here, because I wanted to share a couple of items there. So I got the right screen up? Sure. So Surface Pro 3, which I think was one of my picks and what I'm using currently, is just a nice little tablet / laptop device. You can get a kind of a mid-range i5 processor for under $1,000, 128 gigabytes, just kind of a nice quality device. So I think that was a nice pick. Another thing that I hadn't heard of was a projector. An interactive Epson projector, and I'm not sure, weren't real specific in which model it was, but I pulled up one, the Brightlink 485W, I assume that stands for Wi-Fi interactive LCD projector. What's interesting about these is a lot of these projectors are now coming with software, and they make themselves kind of a smart device. So they come with pens. So you don't need like the traditional smart boards. You just use the pen on your dry erase board or the wall or whatever. We saw some of these, Sallie, last year in New Ulm when we were doing our unconference.
I actually used one at Michigan Teacher Conference too.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
How'd you like it?
It was nice. I didn't have the driver software for the pen.
Okay,
So,
yeah, right. You do need the software on your computer.
Just a little bit of setup, but besides that, all good.
These look like the coming wave, so you don't have all the all the stuff that you need that needs to go along with a smart board. So these seem like viable classroom options. Another thing that was mentioned, and this ties in nicely with kind of my fitness focus of last week. Garmin Fenix 2 was listed. This is not an inexpensive device, but it looks like it does a ton of things, especially for somebody who is wanting to get in shape. It's a training watch for multi-sport athletes, so it'll track heart rate. It'll obviously do steps and give you kind of goals for where your heart rate should be. Looks like it monitors cadence, ground contact time. I'm sure all these are important to people who are training. High sensitivity GPS positioning, 3-axis compass with altimeter and barometer. It doesn't sound like you could stuff anything more in a watch, and it's actually pretty cool looking. So there's a lot of these coming out right now. Microsoft just released one of their first fitness bands that does continuous heart rate monitoring and sleep monitoring, that kind of stuff. So this is a growing category that I think will be interesting to watch, and somebody referenced it as one of their favorite gadgets. So
cool.
And that is probably the lion's share of what came in the gadgets section. Let me just double check my notes here, just make sure I didn't overlook anything. Nope, that's about it. The last category, Sallie, was kind of a catch-all, miscellaneous, anything else category, and there were a couple that were fairly prolific in the anything else category. And why don't you cover a couple of those things that piqued your interest?
Sure, some of the newer things that I saw, and maybe we've talked about these before on the show. One of them was a website called BibleMapper.com,
Okay.
and it's mapping software that you can download. There's a free version and a pay-for version. So Bible Mapper 3 is free. Bible Mapper 4, you need a license, and that's $37, I believe. So it has pre-made maps. It has lots of maps, features that you can build your own maps of the Holy Land for whatever presentations and things like that that you're doing. So that was one. Another one was this BiblePlaces.com. I think we've talked about this before, but it's basically a library of photos of all different locations mentioned in the Bible. So you can just kind of look up the area that you're interested in, and it's not just a photo gallery. There are explanations with the photos, and then as you scroll down the page, there are links as well, helpful links and things, kind of a bibliography almost that takes you to a lot more information about the particular area you are looking at. And very, very thorough of all the different areas of the Holy Land.
Yeah, I think we have looked at that before. It's not the prettiest site, but it seems like it would be an awesome resource if you're just trying to pluck out an image or a little bit of text about, some of these locations to augment a Bible class or Bible study.
Exactly. So BiblePlaces.com was that one. Switching gears a little, someone mentioned the website MuseScore.org, and this website again has software that you can download for free that you can use to create and annotate your own musical compositions. And I want to say that I clicked on one of these. I think I clicked on Tour, and it tells you more about the capabilities of it. It's basically, I think, there's a particular software that's pay-for, that's Syllabus or something like that. Does that ring a bell with you, Martin? And it's a
Sibelius, it's called, yeah.
Sibelius, that's it. I was messing with the pronunciation, but it is a comparable software to Sibelius. So check out MuseScore if you're interested in putting your musical talents to paper.
Yeah, I think one of the uses that was maybe referenced or had in mind there is even if you don't compose, if you want to get a score into your bulletin. So if you've got it, if you don't want to do kind of the copy and paste, or the whole mimeograph copier kind of thing, you could actually put a clean score in based on the music that you plug in there and then print it out or capture it in a nice JPEG into your service folder.
And then, boy, I think that might kind of wrap it up. A few others that were mentioned were things like Audacity. We didn't really have a category for multimedia or whatever, but certainly if you're doing audio recording, that can be your best friend. And again, it's a free download. Google Hangouts, you could use. Somebody said they used it to broadcast their worship services. So the Hangout on Air thing with an iPad or something, and you can use that as a platform for broadcasting potentially. So I know others have broadcast Bible classes and things, so definitely a possibility there. There were more, though. I think you had some that you had identified as well, Martin.
Yep. Yeah, let me mention a couple of those. Actually, a category, website content management systems. Two of them were mentioned. WordPress, of course, which we show, and a product called Weebly, W-E-E-B-L, kind of a file editor. And like a potential CMA. A couple other kind of off-the-wall kinds of recommendations. Sonos, which is a wireless speaker system. I don't know if you've ever heard of Sonos, Sally, but it's really kind of a high-end. Let me do a quick screen share here and share with the good folks the Sonos website. But basically, it's a hi-fi wireless speaker and audio component system, so that you can through an app or through a lot of standard audio components send music throughout a location. And I'm assuming it was mentioned here because might be a way to bring music to different locations in a church or school setting without having to run wires. It all does this wirelessly. It stays in sync. It's kind of some nice tools where you can control what's going on in each room. It's not the cheapest. You're really paying for good quality here. It's probably one of the top-end wireless speaker systems. So I found that I thought that was interesting that it was mentioned. A couple other things that were mentioned that I had not been aware of. Note software for academic research and writing. This sounds like a really full-featured, wouldn't call it a word processing package, but I guess they do call it that. A word processor for scholars is how they kind of tag it. A bibliographic manager for those who are tired of typing, formatting their own citations and bibliographies. A personal search engine for those who want to find anything they've ever written in seconds. Database manager, keeps track of different things. A Greek, Cyrillic, Arabic, Hebrew, and IPA word processor for those who just want more fonts. So it sounds like a tool that would hit the sweet spot for a lot of pastors. I'm surprised I had not heard of it before. They're up to version 10, so they've been around a long time. Pricing, they're in the $200 to $300 range, so it's not an inexpensive purchase, but if it does what you need it to do, may be well worth it. So that was one that I had not heard of. And then the other one I hadn't heard of was something called GradeLink. So this must have been come from a pastor who has some educational responsibilities. It's a school administration system, student information, and school management system they bill themselves as. So grade books, report cards, communication with parents, with students. So it sounds like something that could be useful for somebody running confirmation class or somebody who's day in and day out in a school system of some sort. So that was also mentioned. Those were the big ones. Kindle was mentioned, of course, again. And maybe my favorite, Sally, of all the ones that were mentioned here was somebody who said, "My wife."
A techie device, huh? Your wife?
Who makes me put my tech away.
Ah, there you go.
So just a regulator, somebody who's doing a little sanity check on the spouse, saying, "Hey, I think, honey, you need to pay a little more attention to the world around you." So
that's great. I'm glad that got submitted. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. So again, thanks to all the pastors who submitted a survey response. We really appreciate that. Made for a couple of good shows, I think, and gave everybody a little bit more of an awareness of what's being used out there. So lots of variety, as we probably could have imagined.
Maybe we'll have to consider a teacher survey in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's move on to ministry resources, Sally.
Ministry resources.
Open resources I have down here in my notes.
Yes.
Search for free church resources.
That's the one window I failed to open in advance of this show, but I have it open now. No
All right,
worries.
go for it.
So Open Resources is a site that I stumbled upon where they're sharing. I was looking for new media resources, so things for churches that use projection. They often maybe are looking for PowerPoint templates or something like that. And this site has those things. They build it around sermon themes, basically. And so they also include sermon-type materials as part of the packages that they have available. So I'm just going to click on Beautiful Tension here, and you can see an example. So they have promo graphics, they have presentation slides, they also have sermon outlines and audio files and some videos maybe to start the conversation or whatever it may be. So I would say you certainly would want to research before you did any kind of investment in their series or things, but from the graphics perspective it might be a benefit to you to add this to your list of tools, websites to research on if you're looking for a particular topic. They have it organized along the top. They have biblical themes, family, finance. It's really tiny lettering, healing and recovery, hot topics,
What it
relationships.
says? Really tiny lettering?
Yeah, it does. It says get new glasses or something. You're getting old. Anyway, openresources.org is the web address, and
It's a good thing
hopefully
you've got the screen sharing on, or we would have seen you eyeballing, your
that's
computer monitor
exactly
there.
what I was doing. So, got to get these trifocals aligned just right. So,
I think these resources, Sally, are great for just kind of like brainstorming ideas. Probably most of them you wouldn't take, even in pieces, but you would say, hey, that's a very creative idea. I didn't think of that approach for that particular text or whatever. So that's a good resource.
yeah, I was excited to find it, and I'm excited to have it open and share it with you guys. So, but I did open up an article about our
News
whatever
and
the
tech.
next category is that isn't on my screen. News in tech, of course. That's always the next category. And there was some buzz around Google Calendar this week. Google Calendar on the web gets smarter with real-time updates and back button support. So granular little incremental changes to the Google tools is kind of their MO. They don't do big stuff. They do small steps and little things, and this one allows you to go back in your browser. It allows you to do real-time updates of information without refreshing the page. So if something changes, your Google Calendar will display the changes. So a meeting time gets updated. It's not necessary for you to constantly be refreshing your page to see those kind of changes.
That's more like an app rather than a web page, and I think that's a step in the right direction. There was just news out yesterday, I believe, Sally, about Google Calendar on the mobile side too, where they were updating the whole design to this new material design, Google's calling it, a little bit cleaner look, and it looks really cool. Has not come to my phone yet, but I'm looking forward to taking a look at the new design as well.
Excellent. All kinds of calendar news. Huh?
Yep. Let's move on to our tips and or picks of the week.
And I'm going to share something from the website Teachers Pay Teachers, and that's a website we have talked about in the past on the show, Martin. It's an interesting site. So teachers are always creating wonderful resources to use in their classroom, and now they have this platform where they can post those resources and other people can come and take advantage of them. And many of the resources that are posted for free. Some of them are pay for as well, and there's some teachers that have a great side income because of that, because they do great work, and it's really wonderful to be able to go here and take advantage of that. So the thing that I found this week was something to use with TED Talks, and maybe you're familiar. I think we've shown some on the show before, but TED is kind of a think tank that puts together these great speakers to talk about kind of innovative or evocative topics that would be great to support, classroom discussion, brainstorming. They maybe support or expand upon things that you're teaching in the classroom. This says for grades 6 through 12. So you do some research, you find a TED Talk, you show the video, and what this teacher has put together is basically a recap sheet or a reflection sheet on the video, and it's totally free to download. And she has all kinds of questions here that lead the students through thinking a lot more deeply from a lot of different angles. So, right away, just what's the name of the TED Talk? When did you watch it? What was the theme? How did he establish himself and his credibility? How did he appeal to the audience's emotions? And also, kind of analytically, what did he do that made him an effective public speaker? So looking at it from that perspective as well. Really great reflective questions. Write things you learned from the presentation. If you could ask a question of the speaker, what would you ask? What is something that you would criticize, and then what group of people would benefit the most from hearing this lecture? And I thought it was just really well done, laid out. You're not asking for a lot of stuff because there's not a lot of space on the page, but it definitely would get the students thinking about what they've heard and seen in the TED Talks, and especially analyzing it from a lot of different perspectives. So.
Now, is that for TED Talks or TED Talk for kids or both? Because I know there's like a TED Talks for kids too, right?
Yeah, this said TED Talks. I
Okay.
think it was, yeah, geared. It says grades 6 through 12. And
Okay. Cool. There's a couple things you're going to learn whenever you watch a TED Talk, at least I've found. You're going to learn something new, something interesting, something future thinking, but you're also going to learn how to public speak because
that's
most of
right.
the people that are on TED Talk know how to present. So it's a win-win, I think, for students, especially that age when they're trying to formulate those forensic skills of how to do public speaking. So good stuff. Nice
Yeah.
find.
I think you have to create a free account on Teachers Pay Teachers in order to download, but it is a free download. So we'll have that link in the show notes. Go grab a copy.
Very cool. All right, my pick of the week is Google Wallet. Apple Pay we talked a little bit about last week. We talked a little bit about Google Wallet, I think, as well. Kind of in the same category. I use an Android phone, so Google Wallet is my pick. So I don't have a lot of experience with Apple Pay yet because it's pretty new as well. But I do have experience with Google Wallet, and it works really well. So what we're talking about is the ability to pay for stuff with your phone. So you just need the app and the appropriate hardware on the phone. It needs to have NFC, or near field communications. Apple Pay works the same way, but with Google Wallet you have the app. You connect up your credit card or credit cards to the Google Wallet app, and then when you go into a place that accepts it, and you'll see a little symbol. It's got this little person with a card and a little kind of looks like our podcast logo, Sally.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
Yep.
Wi-Fi symbol. You've seen it in McDonald's and a few other places. You can simply open the app, enter your PIN in Google Wallet, and then tap your phone against the payment device, and it'll pop up and say done. And that's really all there is to it. Now, some would say, well, what's the difference between that and a credit card? I think the biggest advantage to using your phone for payment to some of these systems versus, like, say, your credit card is that they use something called tokenization. So what happens is when you pay with Google Wallet, the Google application creates a made-up or a one-time use credit card number that it sends to the merchant. So even if that merchant is hacked, they're going to only find a credit card number that is useless because it was for one-time use. Google handles the transaction on the back end because it's got it connected to your Discover card or your MasterCard or whatever. The merchant or the vendor really only has this one-time tokenized piece of information that is no good to anybody once it's been used. So it is safer to use this kind of system, a Google Wallet or an Apple Pay. And so now whenever I see the opportunity to use this kind of tool, I'll pull out my phone and do it. Google Wallet also has the advantage of storing your loyalty cards or your gift cards, and you can use them in the same fashion depending on what vendor you're actually working with. You can use this online too. Sometimes you'll see a Google Wallet Pay button when you're shopping online. It's good to use it that way as well. It gives you a full transaction history, so you can kind of go back in time and see what you're spending stuff on, etc. So that's my pick of the week.
The world has passed me by, Martin. I can't imagine. What stores do you use this in? Did you say McDonald's?
McDonald's has it for sure.
Oh, my
Most recently, I used it in Panera.
Oh.
But Walgreens has it. There's a bunch of them. There's a
And
list on
most
the
of
website.
them that have it have the Apple Pay thing as well? Are they
I don't know if I would
overlap?
say most, but yeah, I would say pretty close. Yep, because Apple Pay is pretty new, but it's the same technology. It's the same kind of sensor that's needed to accept it. Now, there's a big controversy over some not wanting to do it, and that's a whole nother story, but not wanting to accept Apple Pay. But I would say at the end of the day, I think mobile payment systems are gonna win out just because they're so convenient and they're more secure. So
That's important.
yeah.
Yep.
Let's move along. What are we moving along to? Must
We
be
have a Wells Insider
Wells
feature.
Insider section. Yep.
Yep.
Fire
And
and ready.
I'm here on the WELSTech homepage just to show you that under the What We Believe category, there's a link to something called Questions and Answers. I would venture to say this is the most, or one of the most popular areas of our WELS.net site, and it has been that way. It's been reigning as king for a number of years because this is just golden information where anyone can come along and ask a question and get a doctrinally sound, biblically based answer, typically answered and staffed by our seminary professors, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, now it is Professor Pope from MLC who does all
awesome.
those. Yep,
Awesome.
He used to be our SEM profs.
Okay. So you'll see a featured question. You'll see categories of questions, and you can dig in and find things. There's also a searchable archive and then a link to ask a question. So you can use it in a lot of different ways. Obviously, you can come here and ask a question or find an answer to a question, and maybe you just want to make that part of your Bible study.
I've known a number of congregations who have done that. They've just plucked out questions and kind of dove in on particular questions or topics from the WELS Q&A.
And some of them are, like I said, very historically doctrinal issues or whatever, but others are very cutting edge, timely topics as well. The example that I had, I'd heard of usage in terms of research, is here at Minnesota Valley Lutheran High School. Our students, all in 9th grade, have to write a paper, and they're directed to the Q&A to do their research on the topic that they're given. So teaching the students about the valuable archive that's there and the areas that they can find answers that are sound answers and things. So lots of possibilities here with the WELS Q&A, and maybe you're just encountering someone that's asking some really difficult questions about marriage or divorce or baptism or death or whatever it may be, and you don't feel quite as prepared as you should. This is a tool that's here where you can go and read about those kind of topics and brush up on proper answers and reasoning behind those answers.
Very well backed up with scriptural passages, very logical answers. Just a tremendous resource.
Treasure chest.
Let's go to the Need to Know section. Couple of things, one training and one conference.
That's correct, Martin. We're busy here in the WELS Technology office, and this is one area that's going to keep us hopping, and that is online final web training coming up January 21st through 23rd. We're going to do this via Google Hangouts, so you can join me for 3 full days, top to bottom of your final website, and we'll meet up, we'll talk through things, there'll be times for you to practice things on your computer, ask all the questions you can come up with, and we'll do our best to get you the answers that you need. So join us. There's a link here to get registered. The cost is $49 per day or $129 for all 3 days. So be there. You also want to be at the WELSTech Conference 2015, which is coming up July 9th through 11th. At Country Springs Hotel and Conference Center in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And we have an exciting list of speakers that we're going to share with you, and all of the registration information and things should be ready to go around February 2nd. So if you want to be notified of that, just hop on over to our website at wels.net/WELSTechConf. You can give us your name and email address, and we'll be sure to notify you when you can register for WELSTech Conference 2015.
Great. Looking forward to it. It's just around the corner now, it seems like.
There's a lot of work to do between now and then, so
yes,
hopefully not too close around the corner.
All right, let's look at community feedback for this week.
Sure, and first up I want to point you to a website, just a good example of a way to use video potentially to connect people in your school and congregation. I picked up on this article from the CLS E-News, I believe. They had featured St. John's Connections, and it's St. John's in Neillsville, Wisconsin. On a quarterly basis, they post a school connections video. So we have the WELS connection, and they've kind of taken off on that theme, and they post these videos to keep the congregation connected to what's going on in the school. I think we do something kind of similar at St. Paul's, where we have occasional videos that they'll show at the end of the service, kind of parallel to showing the Wells Connection video. And then, you're communicating and keeping people in touch with all the different activities that are going on. So,
Cool.
good example. Check it out from St. John's in Neillsville, Wisconsin, and maybe it'll give you some ideas for your congregation or school as well. And no podcast would be complete without some Pinterest pens. All you folks that were just waiting with bated breath for Pinterest, I've got some good stuff for you. First up, for the educators in the audience, is a pen that I thought was really interesting. It's a picture of a notebook. I think it's a math notebook, actually, where students' homework is listed. And right there, intermixed with the homework and the examples, is a QR code. So this teacher printed the QR codes, perhaps like on a sticker paper or something, and had the students affix it to their homework and their class notes, and then with great ease they could scan that and get to web-based resources related to the lesson. Perhaps she flipped the lesson and she has a page with a video that explains and goes through the examples they worked on in class, or whatever it may be. Just, I thought, a really creative use of QR codes to print them on a sticker type material and stick them right into the notes.
That is cool.
Good
Is that a
thing I
Wells
Pinterest.
teacher?
No, it's a Pinterest friend of mine. We're good friends. Whoever pinned that, I don't know.
Cool.
And then another Pinterest find for me led to the website called shakeuplearning.com, and this website has some really awesome Google sheets. I haven't dug any further. I bet there's a lot of other really awesome stuff on this website, but the one that I saw first was just released on October 15th, and it's a cheat sheet for Google Slides. And just in a really comfortable and thorough way, she walks through Google Slides from the home screen to all the different menu options that are included, and explanations of pretty much everything you can imagine associated with Google Slides. So just a great little reference to tuck away. Every single icon that's a part of the system is explained, and just in a really clear way and very thorough. So that's just one of her cheat sheets, though. She's got cheat sheets on Google Docs, Google Apps for the iPad, Google Drive for iOS, keeping up with Google in a million different ways you can do that, the guide to Google Drive sharing and Google Drive cheat sheet, Google Chrome cheat sheet. The list is very long, and those are just that's just one section of our website. And I think found some really high quality stuff here. It might be worth bookmarking yourself and referencing, especially if you're trying to roll out Google to your school, because she's got it covered. So
awesome.
Good stuff. Shake Up Learning. Martin, we got some email this week from a couple of folks asking some techie questions as well. Stephen Daly first?
Sure. He was wondering if you could give a brief explanation of how you take your live Google Hangout on YouTube and turn it into a downloadable MP3. I'm wondering because you seem to be able to do it very quickly, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of delay between the video and the MP3 release. There's really not a lot of mystery to it. Once, when you do a Google Hangout on air, which is what we do, it gets uploaded right away, basically, to Google. It's recording it as you go along, or I should say right away to YouTube, right? And once it's up there, you have the ability to go into your video manager as the owner of the publishing point, wherever you're saving your Google Hangouts to, and be able to download the MP4 file, basically. So you're downloading a video file. And since I'm working all of my podcast stuff on a Mac, all I do is open up that MP4 file in QuickTime, which is a standard product on most Macs, where you can get it downloaded for free on Macs, and then do an export as MP3. So it just strips out the audio from that file, and it only takes like 3 seconds, really. And then I've got my MP3 file, and then we just upload that to our blog site, and we're done. So that's why the video doesn't take, or the audio doesn't take very long. It takes a lot longer to process the video because we do take that raw YouTube video and make it a little bit more presentable by adding a lead in and some post, and if there's an interview that we have to splice in, we do that as well. And then I have to reprocess that and upload that. Our MP3 files, just to give you an idea, are only maybe 30, 40, 50 megs total, so they're not real big, so it doesn't take a long time to upload them. Our video files, on the other hand, are over a gigabyte. So that's why there's maybe a little bit of a lag sometimes you'll notice between the audio release and the video release. So hope that's what you're looking for, Steve, but that's our little process.
Good stuff. It touches a lot of different software, the things you're doing, but for the audio only, QuickTime is just a great way to do that.
It is, yeah. And there are equivalent approaches probably on the Windows side. I can't think offhand what I would maybe use for that, but there's got a Movie Maker or whatever. Any of those kinds of tools would allow you to export just the audio.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're going to say?
I actually use Camtasia Studio, which is
you could do that
product.
Too. Right, exactly.
Anything like that.
The last question was from John Kunkel, Technology Coordinator at Trinity Lutheran in Minocqua, Wisconsin. He's having some problems getting high-quality video out of his cameras into his computer. And I won't read the whole long email, but basically, and I shouldn't say I'm an AV expert, but the way it appeared to me is he's using S-video cable to get the video from his camera into his computer through, I think, a Pinnacle device that is connected via USB, and he was not getting great results. And I believe it was his nephew who does work in the business was suggesting maybe he switched to BNC cable. And that would definitely be a start because you're going to get a much cleaner digital signal from BNC cable versus S-video, which is kind of on the lower end of video these days.
Isn't it analog as well, S-video?
Right. And BNC would, well, it depends on what the camera can push out to. So BNC is always a better option. You have to just make sure your camera can do that. And then, because what that little device does is it converts it from analog or whatever to digital. But if it's coming in digital, then it's going to be a lot easier route. Problem when you go to BNC is it gets pretty expensive to get some of these converter devices. Blackmagic is kind of the standard for some of these converter devices. It'll take that cable and get it into your computer in a usable format. So you're talking sometimes $200, $300, $400 to make that all happen. But we live in an age where audio is really kind of a requirement. So if you're doing stuff with church services, sermons, whatever, you probably need to make some kind of investment and talk to some people who know what they're doing to kind of get it set up right once rather than kind of fishing around and hope for good results. So.
Great advice, Martin. Thanks for being the audio-video guy.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Exactly. I'm as good as we get here. So
keep sending those questions his direction.
Absolutely. I'll keep sending us questions in general. We would love to try and help answer them, or find people who are smarter than we are, and that's not hard to do.
Did we mention?
Answer it.
Yeah. Did we mention the name of our website, WELSTech.wels.net?
We just did.
That would be the web address. But we would love to have you visit the WELSTech website, and we have lots of ways for you to connect with us there. There's links all along the top to a multitude of community contact locations, from Google Plus to Pinterest and everywhere in between. And we also allow you to comment on our page or even send us a voicemail from right there on the page. The value of this website is the online archive of all of those 366 conversations that we've had. So if you're looking for some help with technology and ministry, try our search box, folks, and you might find a podcast where we've talked about it and show notes to support that. So please do visit WELSTech.wels.net.
Yeah, and if you're just wondering whether it's on there, use that little search box at the top. It really does a nice job of trying to ferret out all the stuff maybe that you're looking for. That's what I use all the time. Yep. Next week we return to our book review entitled "What's Best Next." There's
we
a subtitle there.
But Martin, we missed you last month. This is where the things went downhill, and we needed you, and Pastor Gunther stepped in. So you got to catch up on part 1, and now we're ready to move on to part 2.
I read part 1. It's very interesting, so I'm looking forward to
Awesome.
reading part 2. Is it
Yes.
gospel-driven productivity?
That's correct.
So read up or stay along with us and join the conversation there. Sallie, do we have a featured video this week?
We do, and it harkens back to something that we learned about from our pastor's text survey, and that was MuseScore. MuseScore.org is a notation device where you can write down music compositions, and there's a wonderful series of videos that they've produced in little short snippets. Each one's only about 3 minutes long. There's 10 of them. I'm guessing it might take you about 30 minutes to get through all of them, and you would probably be a MuseScore expert. So they will help you get started in 10 easy steps. And we've got the first one to feature on our show notes, and you can find more over on YouTube. So if you're interested in MuseScore, here's a great place to start.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sallie. Appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who's live viewing. We had a few visitors this week. Nobody asked any questions, but you can do that at any time that you'd like. We try and do the show every Tuesday at 4 o'clock. So if you're listening now, you still have some time to get out and vote, make your vote count on Election Day here in the U.S. If not, hopefully you can join us next week, whether that's at 4 o'clock or just download it from your favorite pod-catching software, iTunes or right from the website or Stitcher, all kinds of ways to catch our stuff. So thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week. God's blessings on you throughout the week.